Hi, I'm Carmen Alana Tippett. Welcome to the Agoja Art Studio. Recently, I got a request from one of my YouTube viewers on how to make this, which is a tiny little book, and I add these onto a lot of my dolls, and it's nothing complicated, so I thought I would give you a quick tutorial. One thing I will say is that the technique that I use makes a relatively sturdy book, but these are not books that should be used or sold as jewelry or something that's going to last a long time. On a doll, they're perfect. If it's just for you or a gift for a friend, something neat that you want to do because it's tiny and miniature and everything small is extra wonderful, perfect. But I would not sell these as a standalone functional book. So with that caveat, let's get started. Let's take a look at a completed book. So the outside is leather or suede, and then for what would be the end papers in a normal book, I've used just quilting cotton fabric, just basically a lightweight printed fabric. The pages are recycled paper of some sort. In this case, it's just old maps. And then what makes this stiff is my good old standby, which is cereal box cardboard. So it's nothing complicated. Everybody has these components around. If you don't have leather or suede, then you want to use a thicker fabric because you have a lot of glue and you don't want it to show through and look kind of blotchy on the outside. So let's see how this is done. So the first thing you want to do is cut up some pages, whatever size you want, and just make as many as you want, whatever size you want, and then you want to measure the thickness because this is going to be the spine of the book. I usually go for about 1/4 of an inch thick. You can go up to 1/2 inch, but that's probably going to be a little bulky for something this small. So then once you have all your pages, you want to tamp them down to make sure that the one side that's going to be the spine is flush. And then I clothespin everything together, and it's okay if the other edges are a little bit rough or they don't match up so well. So then what you're going to do is you're going to have whatever size page you have, and you have two options. Either you can make the book flush with the pages, or you can make the board, they're called book boards, you can make them slightly bigger than the pages, which is what I usually do. So in that case, you want to measure all the way around your pages, and then you're going to cut some pieces of cardboard, and you can see I've cut them about 1/8 of an inch wider on 3 sides. So this is going to be the spine. So you're going to cut a piece of cereal box cardboard, the thickness of your bunch of pages, and then you're going to cut another piece of cardboard the same size as the first one. Okay, so then you're going to have these 3 pieces of cardboard and then your pages, which you can set aside for now. So then you want to get some fabric, and this is going to be what we would call our end papers. And so you want to spread the entire surface of the cereal box cardboard with just basic white glue, the thin stuff. And then you want to press it firmly on the fabric, and you want to make sure that all of the edges, actually the whole thing, should be sticking to the fabric. And then sometimes I'll put a book on top of that to keep it flat. The reason that you want to make sure that everything is sticking is that if it's not, it'll bubble up in here and it'll look kind of weird. But of course, if it's just a decorative thing for a doll and the book is closed all the time, I guess it doesn't really matter so much. So you want to let that dry completely, and then with very sharp scissors, you're just going to cut out your pieces of cardboard and fabric. And so if you have really, really sharp scissors, this is not difficult at all. And so you just go along, you trim it off, and the edges are flush with the cardboard, and you are ready for the next step, which is gluing your little end pages onto your leather or suede. So here I have a piece of suede, and it's leathery on one side and suede-y on the other, and it's up to you which side you use. It doesn't really matter. So what you're going to do is start with one one side of the book. You're going to do the white glue thing, so it's going to be completely covered. Make sure you get all of the edges and the whole thing. It's not so important to get everything here covered with glue, but you want to make sure all those edges are completely covered with glue. And then you're just going to glue it onto your leather, press all the way around. So then you get your little spine piece, and you're going to glue it on, but it doesn't go flush with the edge of your end paper piece. You have to give it space because you have to have space for the cover of your book to open and close. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and glue that down, and then you're going to do the same thing with the back. And then I have one where I've done that here, and this one I just finished, so it's a little damp, which is why it looks blotchy, so the glue is still wet. So you can see here the space where the two pieces of cardboard are not flush, and it's a pretty decent space. It's probably 1/8 of an inch, and that's so that the covers of the book can open and close easily. If you put the cardboard pieces together, then there wouldn't be enough room for the leather that's in those areas where it has to bend. It wouldn't have enough room to bend. So you would do all your gluing. I would put a book or something on top of that, let it dry. Sometimes it can have a tendency to get a little curvy. You see there's a little bit of an outward curve here. So that's why you want to make sure that it dries completely flat. So have a weight over it. And then when it's dry, then you're going to glue in your pages. So you have some options here. So here I have a bunch of pages, and one of the things that I've done is I've pre-glued the pages shut a little bit. And this might be easier when you're first starting out because it's easier to work with a block like this than, you know, having a loose block like this and you're shuffling around and things start to move around. So the key to success is using Eileen's tacky glue. And the reason that you're using this is it's a thicker glue and it dries and it's very flexible and stretchy, which is important. This is actually very similar to real bookbinding glue. It's acid-free, and so it'll work just fine. And you need that flex because when your book opens and closes and you're opening those pages and turning the pages, the glue that's in the binding in here has to move and flex for those pages to move and flex. And so the whole block of pages is just stuck straight into the spine. So it's not sewn in or anything like that, which is why I said that these are not the sturdiest of books, and you wouldn't want to use these as something like jewelry. Because if you're opening and closing over time, there's a possibility that things could come loose. Okay, but you want that flexibility, so you want to use the Eileen's tacky glue and not just a basic white glue, which tends to get brittle over time. So if you're just beginning, I would say have your little clump of pages and then just do a thin layer of the glue and then let it dry. So then once you have your little clump of pages, you just go ahead and put a healthy dose of glue, and you can see I'm using a lot here, and that's what you want. And then, soon I drop everything, then you're going to just put your pages in there, and you kind of want to center the little clump, because remember I've made the outer pages a little bit bigger, so you just want to center the clump there, and then it looks good. You see you have glue spooging out on either side, which is fine, and normally what I would do is I would have some pieces of wax paper that I can put in there because the glue won't stick to the wax paper, but of course I forgot to do that, so we'll just go ahead with the next step. You're going to close that book and push those pages in. You want to make sure that they're firmly seated against the spine here. And so you can see now why measuring the thickness of the pages is important, because now you want to have everything well seated, And then you need this to dry, and it needs to sit for a while to dry, and you don't want it to shift around. So I'm sort of holding the whole thing shut in the middle, but I'm pushing inward on the pages to make sure that they're all seated well against the spine. So you want to make sure then that everything is even here. So then get a couple of scraps of the cereal box cardboard, a couple layers, and then you want to put them against the spine like this. And this is important whether you're using leather or fabric for the outside, because then you're going to put some clothespins on here, and this will help hold everything together. And I would let this dry for at least a day, maybe 2. And then when you're done, you take everything apart and you will have a little book that is finished and ready to go. Now often what I do for my dolls is I add a little jump ring, in which case all I do is I get an awl, I can never say that word, and I just jab a hole through and then just feed the jump ring in, and then I can attach that to a little chain. So that's it. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, not too tricky to do. Now if you don't like the way that the edges look, because sometimes you can see that cardboard there, you can just go with a black marker, or if you want to go super fancy, you can go with a gold or silver marker to finish off those edges, and everything will look great. So enjoy this little project. You can make a whole bunch of these and give them away to friends. But one thing to remember about this glue is it is really great, and I actually use this to make scrap notebook pads in the studio. So I save all of my scrap junk mail, cut up the pages, and then I use the whole clothespin thing. I have cereal box cardboard on the back, and then I just hold everything shut, put a couple big globs of the tacky glue on the top, and I make notebooks for the studio. So this is a good recycling project. And you can see here that the glue is flexible, and then you also have the ability to rip off a page just like you would those fancy notebooks that you pay the big bucks for in the stores. So enjoy this project. I'd like to see what you do with your little books. Share some images with me. See you soon. Bye-bye.